Astral Shift into making merch too? I can ask. Phoebe does a lot of events, so I think it would be really great if she... But I would want to make sure that Astral Shift also profits. So how I kind of feel like it should go is Astral Shift... Like, I know a lot of people, like, make prints of their characters. And that's fine, too. But I would want, essentially, to make sure that Astral Shift gets a cut. And maybe that's just because, like, I'm Japan-based, and in Japan, like, that's how we do things. I know that it's different in the US. But at least for me, personally, I don't really feel comfortable if I don't own the IP, and I do not own Little Goody Two Shoes. So what I would want to do is, essentially, have Astral Shift make the merch. And then either I buy it off of them for me to sell at conventions, or they ship it to me and they get a percentage of the sales. However they want to split it. That's how I'd feel the most comfortable, because if Astral has more money, then they can make more content, like DLC content and more games, because their games are fantastic. So I would want to make sure that they get something back from that. So I feel a little bit weird, personally, selling prints that I've commissioned separately, because I feel like that's not my place. But I also understand that that's how things are in the West right now. But I do feel like the future is definitely looping the IP holders in. Like, me personally, I work a lot with Japanese clients directly. So, you know, a lot of times I will be going with the production company to a convention, or I will be representing them. So it's really like a way for me to give back to the company so that they can keep producing things and keep hiring me. So that's what I personally would want to do. So I definitely want to ask Astral Shift if they can make goods that essentially I would sell in their place, and they would also get profits from. However we manage to work that out. I think it's just that they don't appear at conventions, and so they don't really have a reason to make merch, since it is really difficult to run an online store. It's very expensive and very difficult. But Phoebe and I go to conventions really frequently, so I think they could probably sell merch through us, and I'd be okay with that. And I'm sure Phoebe would be okay with that too. So that's something I definitely want to ask them about for conventions I may or may not be doing later this year. Yeah, I want to support them all I can. Because Astral Shift, they do make such wonderful games. And their art is so good. Like, I want to make sure Astral is really successful, because the world that they portray is so wonderful and beautiful and interesting and twisted and dark and innovative, and I think people should see their stories, and you know, their stories should be told. And so for me, like, as an actor, as a singer, I want people with those IPs, people with those franchises, people with those stories to be able to tell them, and I want to be part of that telling. So for me, it's in my best interest to keep those people making games. And so that's my motivation behind it. It's not about... I think a lot of people misunderstand sort of traditional entertainers, especially since influencers are so big right now. But like the more traditional entertainer types, like voice actors and singers, it is about our perspective to a degree, but it's also about, like, if we're cast in something, or if we're singing a song for like an anime or a game, it's just as much about the game, the anime, the client, as it is about us. It's not about just our motivations and perspective and story. Like, we add our spice into it and make their thing the best it could possibly be. And I take a lot of pride in that, I would say. You know, and it's the same in acting as well. I don't own that character. That's not me. But it's a character that I bring to life. And so some of my perspective, some of my own self goes into the character, but it's the same for the people that built the character, that made the character. So it shouldn't just be about my take on the character. It shouldn't just be about my portrayal of the character. It's also about the people that made that character. And so I want to make sure that that doesn't get too all about myself. And then an equally important part is also the people that then connect with that, the viewers, the listeners, the gamers. It's about their connection with that character, what they get out of that character. Because like these characters don't just exist in one perspective. The way I view a character might not be the same way that somebody else perceives the character, and it may not be the exact same way that the creator intended the character, but it's through all of those perspectives that it becomes that character. And so all of these three things are very important to me. And so, yeah, that is my job as an entertainer, is to balance those things. I am kind of the bridge between the client and the people consuming it. And so a lot of times the focus does end up on the entertainer, but we would not exist without either the viewers, the gamers, the watchers, or the clients. We're all in like a symbiotic triangle relationship, and that's why I think it's really important to make sure that all sides of that triangle are being equally honored and supported and be kept in that loop. And so, yeah.
That's just my thing.
But I'm definitely a little bit more traditional, I think, than a lot of people. I think especially when it comes to like content creators, I know that it's a very different atmosphere, and I'm coming at everything from a very traditional entertainer standpoint. I'm very new to content creation, so I'm not really used to things being about me, because up until now, things have been about the employer, the watcher, and myself all symbiotically. So that's definitely like a balance I'm trying to figure out. As an actor slash singer, I am only involved in a project normally. Like with Astral Shift, it was a bit different because I was involved for so many years. But generally speaking, I'm only involved in a project for a few months at best. If it's like a long-term game, like a regular, I might be involved for several years off and on. But generally speaking, I'm only involved like a little tiny bit, but those producers are there from day one to like day 5 billion. And like their whole life is what they're making. And that's why like I get really frustrated when I see people kind of like more on the entertainment side sort of taking all the glory for something, because I'm like, yeah, you weren't sitting there for 4 years before it came out rewriting schedules and like coordinating the actors and coordinating the music and like, oh no, the composer ran off, we gotta find a new composer. Like, that wasn't you. Like, you are not the end-all be-all of this character because there was somebody who sat there and redrew those socks 25 times. Astral Shift's a very small, tight-knit team, and we've all been pretty involved for a while, but I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like I programmed that game. That must have been a nightmare. Like, I helped with the directing, I supported a bit with the casting, but like, the writers were working on that 24/7 for like years. Kira drew like every single wrinkle in every outfit. Hika, who did the background, every leaf. Craziness. All I did was I went, for goodness sake, like about 25 times and I was done. That's what I did.